On September 4th, Silksong was released and set the world on fire. It's a critically acclaimed title loved by everyone, and when I sat down to actually play the game, it turned out to be better than I could have ever expected, and here's why. Anyone, whether or not they've played the original Hollow Knight, Metroidvania, or Souls games, would be able to enjoy the masterpiece that is Hollow Knight Silksong. The first thing you're shown after starting your save file is Farloom's Folly, a short poem that aims to set the tone of your adventure, serving as a bridge between Hornet, the hero of our story, and Farloom, the world that she has now set foot in. Interestingly enough, because of the vague narrative that this style has, Hornet doesn't explicitly tell you anything about herself, which leaves room for interpretation. All we can tell is that she's capable of wielding strength that others can only dare witness, and perhaps it's because of this that these pilgrims revel in her greatness, as if she were chosen to be their savior, unaware of the mortality that wears hidden on her soul. And with that, we're introduced to Act 1, Farloom. After landing at the bottom of this pit and nearly getting decapitated by her own weapon, Hornet picks herself up, setting off to not only climb out of here, but also figure out what they wanted with her in the first place. The level starts off simple, using vibrant visuals to keep your attention while introducing simple obstacles, such as destructible vines, teaching the basic attack before any enemies appear. The platforming of these early levels are also easy, giving room to experiment and get used to the controls without punishing you severely. After making it over that first jump, there's a simple enemy which can be spotted ahead of time, encouraging the player to chain together the basic controls while developing the gameplay loop that becomes more intense in later levels. It's in that same way that they add drama to Hornet's character arc, as she doesn't elaborate on details about herself, as they're either unimportant or so obvious there's no need to digress. You might think that with it being a 2D game, you wouldn't have the luxury to leave out story elements that might be otherwise missed. But if you ask me, I think it adds depth to Hornet's character. Because as you play the game, you realize that Hornet tries to rely on her own strength, as despite her struggles, she still endeavors towards her goal, even if she occasionally needs to rest. But that's also the fun part about this game, because like a Shakespearean play, it's up to the audience to interpret. And when you play the game for yourself, I think it adds a personal connection, as you have to immerse yourself in this world to actually get through it. And with that, the starting area of Farloom is taken care of. The best part is that as you ascend through Farloom, the more intense notes like Hornet collapsing from exhaustion doesn't feel out of place. The game layers on context, you see. After having fought through her fatigue and pushed past her limits to defeat a boss, it's only natural that her ancient strength would fail her. Sure, she's capable of great things, but not without her limits. When she wakes, we meet the old chapel maid, who sets the scene and helps guide us on our goal to the Great Citadel. But that's not without giving us a word of criticism. Recognizing Hornet, she makes a comment about how weak they are, for one reason or another. And it's true, but that becomes part of the story. As Hornet recovers a part of her abilities, she uses these to overcome obstacles and free certain creatures that have been trapped in the Citadel's web. Because despite the state of things, it didn't all start off this way. And that's encouragement enough to figure out what kind of devious monsters are trying to destroy this land. And that brings us to Lace, the first main storyline boss of Hornet's quest to the Citadel. You see, she's not like the other inhabitants of these lands. She has no shell, and is crafted entirely out of silk. Made in the image of the ancient weavers, the heroes of these lands who use their powers to weave stories, to overcome the primeval forces of this world. Now as countless generations pass, and the descendants of Farloom have become distant from their heritage, it's these crude representations of strength, formed from impure desires that now inhabit the Citadel in their absence. As for the boss fight itself, it seems simple enough being on a flat arena. However, I've managed to slip off, and even the boss itself laughed at me. But it's no matter. I woke on this bench, and after collecting my bearings, I returned to the boss fight, which the run back wasn't too long, as admittedly, I hadn't gotten anywhere to begin with. As I faced this encounter multiple times, I began to get used to Lace's moveset and realized that the way she was designed was more like a PvP encounter, as if it was Smash Bros. In Silksong, which, funny enough, because it's an NPC, you wouldn't really think that's possible. But the way that the boss fight plays out is she starts to adapt to the way that you move around the field. And at this point, you don't have too many movesets in your kit to be able to outmaneuver and just mechanically outplay her. It's just simple rock, paper, scissors against Lace. With good positioning, you're able to beat her, but it takes time and patience to be able to do that, just like everything else. But after we weaken her significantly, she ends up taking the chance to flee, in a way that tells us we're gonna have to encounter her again in the future. As we continue our journey, we encounter more characters who don't particularly enjoy the systems in place, but are still subject to the way that rules this land. And when we meet the seamstress, she lets us know that just like any other, we won't make it far on our own, as everybody needs a helping hand in their life once in a while. But luckily enough, she's kind and offers to weave us a new cloak, something to help raise us up on our journeys. Even with as helpful as she's been for us, we have to continue, as there's something out there that calls to us, even if we don't know specifically what it is. But as we scurry off, she asks the question, do we we know why they pursue us. And while up to this point no one specifically said anything about why, we can tell it's something to do with our nature. The way we are, there's something deep inside that stands out compared to the rest of the people who pilgrim through this land. In fact, it wasn't even our choice originally to make our way through here, but the creatures who've attacked us so far seemed mindless, and as if not being controlled by their own desires. As if to say there's something more sinister at work here. But we've not made it far enough to be able to see the whole picture, so it's hard to say. The only thing that we have to go off of are the subtle clues that the seamstress tells us to keep heading up. And it's with these very storytelling elements that the game developers guide the player forward without specifically pointing you in the right direction. Using our newly woven tool, we're able to head to the next area, which at first I didn't expect to be such a challenge, but as I continued, it put my character to the test in ways that I didn't see coming. With that, we're welcome to Greymoor, with its constant rain and dreary outlook, put to the test even the most seasoned adventurers. Some call it quits here entirely. Here you find winged beasts, capable of flight that use their advantage to swoop down on you before rising back up to a height where you can't reach them, until they choose to engage you. But that's not all, as there are still signs that point you in the right direction, along with an inn fittingly named Halfway Home. But despite the cozy interior relative to the outside world, we can't call it quits yet, and we've got to continue meeting more people. Some who have more important goals than their own success, like Garmond and Zaza, a knight and his steed on a very sacred quest to answer questions about where his people are going, because unlike him, not everybody is able to stand up for themselves, so he's taken it upon himself to rise to the call of arms. And while a journey like that doesn't have its path laid out, we continue ours, seemingly separate from what he is doing, only for us to encounter a most ferocious beast. As it was trained to stop and punish any workers who tried to flee their tasks, it too stands in our way to the Citadel, threatening to eat us alive, should we dare to go our own way. Now here, lore-accurate Hornet would easily be able to defeat this obstacle and make her way to wherever she's trying to go in some heroic fashion. But in my playthrough, I struggled a lot, and at one point, I even almost gave up, and I straight up walked out of the boss fight and went back to the way that I came. But that's where I met Garmond again, who offered to lend us his strength. But perhaps because of my own pride, I turned him down that first time, only for him to have me reconsider myself, and it was only after I failed on my own over and over again that I thought maybe I needed to learn from somebody else. And so I brought myself back to him, and asked again for his generous help, which without a doubt he accepted, for us to defeat Morwing together, freeing the path for not only ourselves, but others who come after us. But even with him by my side, it wasn't an easy fight, and I had to make use of all of the tools in my kit to be able to beat this boss, from the float to the needle stab, and especially the dashes to make up for lost speed. I had to make use of everything, and be patient to be able to get it done, because as I said, it wasn't easy, it hasn't been so far, and it's only going to get harder from here. But with their help I was able to get through it, and perhaps someday in the future I'll be able to give it back to them in some way or another. But we should be proud of what we've done, as it's not a weakness to be able to ask somebody for help. But we still have more to do, and we both must go in our ways, to be able to accomplish what must be done. Afterwards, Hornet continues her journey, and finds herself at the center of it all. She finds a town wrapped up in a web, as if the lives of the people living there weren't their own. Even Chakra, who hails from a warrior race, seemed utterly disturbed by the way that things were going. But we have to keep exploring, because the people who are after Hornet are also targeting innocent townsfolk, for God knows why. That's how we run into Widow, another abomination, who seems to be playing with the threads of their lives without a care in the world. The attacks and even the boss fight arena itself seems to tell a story of this area, as everything is wrapped in silk, as if frozen in time. And it's only these powerful bosses that are able to control it. In the back you can see all those who have tried to stand up and fight for their lives, only to lose them in the process. But maybe now that a Hornet has entered Farloom, it's possible for things to be set right, now that these monsters controlling the strings are taken care of. But as I tried to leave and head back to where I came from, it seems that not everything was actually in its rightful order, and it'll eventually come back to bite us in the ass if we don't take care of it now. Or so I say. But I'm going to take a break here and finish off this episode, just to see how well it does, because I'm not sure how well I was able to tell the story of Hornet and the unbecomings of Farloom. I really enjoyed this game, but I think I've stressed over it a lot, and I think this is an experience that you should really take your time to enjoy. There's multiple ways for you to go about your adventure, so even if you see me doing it one way, you can start your playthrough and have an entirely different experience. And so maybe now that we're at the 10-minute mark, if I come back with a fresh mindset, maybe the next episode is going to be better. But with that being said, like, comment, subscribe, let me know what I should do.